Hi, everybody. It's Bob Ost, and it's Friday. It's February 21st. And this is, I believe, our 252nd consecutive TRU Community Gathering. Um, this is true. Theater Resources Unlimited. We're an organization, if you don't know us, we're an organization that has been around for 32 years, and we basically help people understand and navigate the business of theater. That's it in a nutshell. A lot more involved than that, I assure you. But I'm glad that you're finding us on YouTube and joining us. Um, we started doing this as a community service back in 2020, April 17th, 2020, response to COVID, blah, blah, blah. We wanted to be able to serve the community and help people have a place to go to be empowered and to have community and to feel a little less isolated. So, of course, we've always been doing this for free, although we encourage people to pay something if they can, because we do have to pay bills sometimes. So the conversations have changed over 5 years. We're going into our fifth year. I guess April 17th will be our fifth anniversary for this. So uh, we I look all over the place for people that I think are interesting, who have done interesting things, and usually it's theater related, but not always. I've had an orchestra conductor, I've had a piano soloist, a concert pianist. I've had, oh, I don't know. If somebody emails me, I'm not one of these people that just immediately deletes the email. I actually read the email even if I don't know them, and I go,
Are you gonna wait for me for lunch?
I don't do that. I don't say, where are you going to wait for me for lunch? No, I don't. I don't know. I don't know who suggested that, but no, that's not what I would do. I would say something more like, "You sound interesting. Would you like to be a guest? Tell me more about what you do." Um, Today, I have one of I mean, we've interviewed so many people that are involved in the producing side of theater. That's kind of our thing. We're really into producing. And here's a guy that you're going to meet today. His name is Don Frantz. He's a producer. He produces like anything and everything. I mean, it's just like, oh, he's done so many different things. I don't even know where to start. But I'm going to bring him on in a second, and you're gonna meet Don. I'm also very pleased to say that he helped us honor Susan Lee and Irene Gandy when we had our benefit back in November. So I'm very grateful to you for the support you gave us then, Don. I'm going to uh, have you come on and just introduce yourself for a moment to everybody, and I will join you in a moment. So, Don, um, I guess what I want to do is I want to find out when, what did you used to do before you produced, or was there ever a before producing?
I don't think I don't think from beginning in high school it was producing. I was a music education major, and thought I was going to be a music teacher. In the course of college, I discovered dance. In the course of college, I discovered theater, even though we didn't have any theater. Um, and so that took me out of music teaching and into musical theater via vaudeville, via magic of all things.
Vaudeville? Really?
Well, yeah. Um, I don't. I guess I got to tell the specifics, but
Yeah.
uh,
You brought up vaudeville. You got to go with it
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Luckily, the school that was going to teach me was wiped out by the Agnes flood in '72. Therefore, I had no teaching job at Hershey Park. I was discovered in the human resource office, filling out a form by Mark Wilson, who was at that time the world's famous magician. I was happily a gorilla for the summer in his show. 2 years later, after working for Hershey Park Entertainment, he invited me out to Los Angeles, and I went into the world of magic, which played a lot of my life later on.
Gee,
Um,
Don, if I'd known that, I would have had you do some magic
I
at the benefit.
make this disappear. So I lived in the magic world. I then kind of dropped out of that for a while in order to dance before I was too old to experience that life. Went to UCLA for my master's in theater management, which got me, solidly into the world of managing and producing.
So, the story often starts, although I think it probably everything you're telling us, I think is very interesting too. But it starts with Disney, some sort of. When I read your bio, it sounds like suddenly Disney was there, and suddenly that sort of shifted things for you. I'm not sure if I'm reading it right or just misinterpreting.
Sure. In Los Angeles, after that world of magic and dance and variety, um, then I went to work at Universal Studios, theme park entertainment director for 2 years because I had worked in an awful lot of theme parks doing magic shows and music reviews and fireworks shows for Mark. After 2 years there, Disney contacted me because they wanted somebody that knew theater, theme parks, and spectacle because they were entering talks with Andrew Lloyd Webber to do a new musical for Disney World. So I went to Disney World, worked with Andrew, getting him back with Tim Rice, and we worked for a year and a half on two musical concepts with Andrew. Um, when that didn't work out, then I just became a producer director at Disney World. After Spectral Magic and a few other shows, um, Frank Rich wrote the famous article about the best musical scores in the film this year, and that was Beauty and the Beast. And Michael Eisner charged a team to create Beauty and the Beast, which is what brought me to New York.
So yeah, let's move let's move into the whole idea of producing. Considering where you started, it doesn't sound like that was something that you actually planned. Um, what was it about you that attracted you to producing, and what do you like? It sounds like your experiences led up to it, but other than that, the fact that you actually had the right moments happening for you that led to a logical connection with Disney. What were your thoughts about producing before you started producing?
I think it's sitting in as many chairs as you can before you start producing, so you know as much as you can internally what everyone's problem is, what everyone's issue is, what's important to everybody, from through all the designers, the choreographers, the dancers, etc. Just kind of, understanding what their pain is and trying to alleviate that as much as you can.
But to what extent were you aware that you were actually building yourself up to a career as a producer? Because I mean, it sounds like you were very much an entertainer. You're much into, it sounds like you talk about doing magic, and there's a lot of love in your voice when you talk about it.
Yeah, well, it is. It's like a number of your guests today doing, their one woman show, one person show, where you just get to have that relationship with the audience. Um, and throughout my career, you can look at all my shows. There's magic on it. It always finds a way into the show, whether it be Beauty and the Beast or Lion King or Disenchanted or anything. Um, Famously, the most fun being Stephen Schwartz, Magic to Do on Princess Cruises recently that Gabe Barry directed. Um, the I think producing comes from just thinking, well, gee, that would be a good thing to do. Well, that would be a good idea. Well, that would be interesting. And then,
This
you
guy used to be with Disney Theatricals, which is one of the King Kongs on the block.
it certainly is. But
The guy
like,
who's talking
Who
used
is
to be
that?
in Disney Theatricals.
Okay,
It's
guys. Okay,
one of
guys.
the big
This is like
yeah,
no, you can't do this.
he's a lawyer with Disney.
I asked you all to turn off your audios. The
well,
assumption was that when you turn off your audios, I get to have a conversation with him. We are open to questions, but let me decide when the questions will be asked. Okay, thank you.
well,
So now
did,
I'm
I will note, I'll just respond to that a bit. Everyone thought it was the biggest, stupidest idea that would certainly fail. When we were doing Beauty and the Beast, it was um, even internally, the Disney company was fighting against Michael Eisner's desire to come to theater. When we finally convinced them we needed to do an out-of-town tryout, they said, "Okay, do it as far away from Los Angeles and New York as possible so nobody will want to go see it, which is what landed us in Houston.
So let me see if I can get back on track.
Sure, sure, sure.
So but what I'm trying to find out from you is how how producing was able to fulfill the needs that you had that you were fulfilling as a performer, as an actor, as a magician. Um, what what does producing give you that you don't get anywhere else, or are you just missing being a magician?
No, I mean, essentially, it fulfills the function of working with people better than me. I mean, essentially, my talents, although I've acted and directed and played instruments, etc. I've done it all at a mediocre level, and I've pleased the audience. I got through it, but essentially, your dreams become larger than what you can do, and so you reach out to others, you know, and maybe working at well, no, working at Mark Wilson Productions, working everywhere. I mean, that was the proof of that. That there was people better than I that I could prop up to create what I was imagining.
So let's go back to I was actually trying to do chronological. So we got you at Disney, okay? So at Disney you um, started putting together a lot of skills that were going to be able to serve you as a producer. You weren't actually a producer at Disney. What was your or eventually you were.
At Disney World, I was producer that became director in the Disney World shows. For Broadway, I was the associate producer of Beauty and the Beast. Interestingly, at that time in 1990, um, Disney, the Disney directors were all choreographers. The Disney producers were all band guys that were promoted. So nobody really knew theater at the time at the Disney theme parks. And we were chosen by Michael to lead the live entertainment. So the big stroke for me was to come to Broadway, learn the general management of Broadway from the Dodgers, which were the foremost team at the time, who were
Michael,
also
so Michael David and you were buddies.
Michael David, Sherman, Rob Strickstein,
So let's
So
talk about general management for a second, because not everybody understands what general management is. Um, s- Producers generally bring on a general manager. It's not usually something that a producer doesn't usually general manage their own show. However, there are general managers who have the ability to be producers and producers who have the ability to be general managers. It's kind of a role that should be separated though. I think. What is your feeling about
uh,
that?
in the UK, it's combined, most times.
Hmm.
Here it's bifurcated. So I kind of like it being separate, just because I'm a New Yorker and I grew up with that way.
Yeah. That's what I'm used to also. I didn't even realize that in UK it was actually done differently. A lot of things are done differently in UK, and a lot of things are done more affordably in the UK, but that's another story. So just so everybody understands, general manager is the guy that puts together he negotiates the contracts, he puts together the budget. Uh, what I say, and you can correct me on this or disagree. I basically say that a producer raises the money and the general manager tells them how to spend it. Um, you
I,
want to jump off that one?
Sure. And every show is different, but a lot of times when I did Class Act and Tale of Two Cities, which were relatively new producers, I mean, in the producer role, they certainly they select the key talent. They might select the key cast member because that's part of their marketing producing concept. They'll certainly select the key art, and the marketing choices that are made. They'll select dates, they'll select everything about the ticket sales, et cetera. But they'll defer all of the paperwork and the hard work and the money work to the general manager.
I kind of like the idea of them being separate because the general manager can be so focused on the money and the best way to spend the money, that he's less likely to be influenced by the artistic side of things, where the artistic side sometimes wants to spend money that the general manager sort of says, I don't think that's smart, and they have to explain why. So I don't know. I think it's a good I think it's a better system. Two people doing those two different things. So you have produced. Let's talk about Disenchanted because I remember Disenchanted with great fondness, and was that were you a lead producer on that for Off-Broadway?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
So talk about that because and also explain to people the difference between being an associate or co-producer or um, and
sure.
a lead producer.
In Disenchanted, I did function as producer and general manager, and I functioned it probably like in UK because it's just cheaper. I mean, we could just not take our GM fees. You know, we just didn't double up the money. We were just trying to get the show on. Um, a singer at Disney World on January 11th called me up and said, "Gee, you should come down to Orlando to see this music review cabaret show because it's hysterical." And it was hysterical because, of course, it took a lot of jabs in a parody of the Disney princesses. And I went down and just was laughing. I mean, it was a at that time a 60-minute, 70-minute laugh-filled track. Um, and I liked it enough to say, yeah, I think there's value there because there was a message, it was great songwriting, and so we went on a 3-year journey to bring it to New York. I think we did 8 or 9 different productions of it of different sorts in order to get it ready for New York and raise the money along the way.
So let me put myself back in the spotlight here. So let's kind of review some of this because I think what I find unique about you is that you have experience in so many different areas that all seems to come together under the heading of producing. We already talked about how you had you had a theme park background, Universal Studios, Busch Gardens. Um, what did you do for Super Bowl halftime shows? And what was Liberty Weekend? I mean, like you do all these things. Like what?
At the for Super Bowl 23, I was a director, I mean, minor co-director of the Magic segment of Super Bowl 23. For Super Bowl 25, I was a stage manager. For Super Bowl 27, it was just too much fun, so I was a secondary stage manager volunteer because you get to be in the end zone. Yeah, so
You like football?
indeed.
Okay. So, and what is the 1984 Louisiana World Exposition?
It
What
was
was
a
that?
It was a World's Fair in New Orleans. The we took the riverfront and it was completely bulldozed and rebuilt. I mean, it is the glorious part of New Orleans, right south of the French Quarter. Um, Frank Gehry designed a 5,400 seat amphitheater on the
Oh my
river,
God.
and I, fresh out of UCLA Theater Management School, ran the 5,000 seat amphitheater with headline entertainment every night.
Like your credits just like go on and on. It just like astonishes me. Um, so what was? Let's talk about corn. What is it with you and corn?
Um, in in 91, I was out in Los Angeles working for Disney. Um, at Disney, we would get little blurbs about what was happening in entertainment around the world. And one blurb said it was the year of the maze. It was a tourist, program for England. I had never been through a maze. I was 40 years old. What why was I deprived such an experience? Um, and I thought, gee, how would I build a maze? Because I'd never been through one. that night I saw Field of Dreams. The next morning I flew in an airplane and looked down at the cornfields in America, and I thought, okay, I know how to build a cornfield. Um, so I mean a maze cheaply and right away. So I pitched it for 2 years, and eventually my um, alma mater, my college, found a cornfield for me. And so I set out to raise money for my music department at Lebanon Valley College in Annville, Pennsylvania, one red light. Um, it happened to be the world's largest maze, Guinness Book of Record. That means the Today Good Morning America showed up, and it became a world story, and launched the corn maze phenomenon, which basically launched agritourism to the level where family farms and living history farms could survive and grow.
It seems to me, and we've talked about this over the years, in TRU and with other people. Um, One of the keys to being a good producer is making a show an event. And it seems to me that that is part of your thinking. That seems to be part of your DNA, that you build events. You think of things in terms of um, all this, many moving parts equaling some amazing whole. Whether it's Beauty and the Beast, or the world's the Amazing Maze, I think it's called. Wasn't it the Amazing Maze?
I was hosting Stephen Sondheim at his first trip at Disney World for 3 days. I got to show him around. And he said, "What do you want to do now, Don?" And I said, "I want to build a maze in a cornfield." And he said, "The Amazing Maze." And I said, "I'm going to take that." And so I thank him for that.
I didn't know I've been quoting Stephen Sondheim.
So now I just do the kind of the legacy fields that stayed with me. So at Queens County Farm Museum, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Cherry Cress, up near Rochester, Macedon, are the three farms that I continue to do every year.
Because now we haven't really covered everything yet. Let's talk about China Ventures, Broadway China Ventures, because you're all over the place.
In 1980, as a magician, Mark Wilson was invited along with Bob Hope and Isaac Stern to be the first trip, three different shows touring China in 1980, a mere 10 months after normalization. So I put on my dancer hat and joined the Mark Wilson tour in China in 1980, which revealed to me everything that I heard about China was wrong, and what a beautiful, beautiful place it was. Um, so it created a love of China, which people knew about, including Susan Lee. And when Nederlander was looking for somebody to go to China after Doug Evans and Jane Kalish and a couple other people were disappointed with the experience, she introduced me to the Nederlanders. And so in 2007, I moved to China to tour Broadway musicals around China. That that company ended, but I stayed there for about half time for the last 16 years, localizing musicals, creating original musicals, creating family shows all over China.
Well, have I missed anything? I'm trying to think what else you've done. I guess my question to you is there a core passion that
Yeah,
drives you into all of these different areas?
I think I I think it's mostly just you know seeing a vision and then pursuing that vision. Um, and I did get um, Susan actually once said to me, a friend told her, just because we have an idea doesn't mean we have to do it. I went, oh, that's great. That helps you a lot. So what I do now is if I have an idea, I just say, what's the next step? If I'm ready to take the next step, I keep the idea. If I'm not ready to take the next step, I drop it. Um, the So it's a really easy way to weed things out. My core passion is I've had success always at bringing two things together that haven't been together. I mean, Beauty and the Beast is the theme park aesthetic of the theme park world characters, etc., or the animation characters, and the theme park manipulations with the Broadway aesthetic. Um, Corn Mazes is the World's Fair spectacle, with the American farm. Um,
Well, the thing about the corn maze is the scope of it. I mean, the mazes are mazes, but you did it on such a grand scope, on such a large scope. And did you actually design it? Because designing
yeah,
a maze is not exactly easy.
yeah. I do the first draft, and then I had in the beginning I had a wonderful collaborator, Adrian Fisher, who is the world's foremost maze designer in England. And so he kind of taught me the ropes on it. Yep. And the ropes when you're doing a 5 or 6 acre maze, it's different because how far you make somebody walk, what level of frustration is, and then basically the entertainment that you put in the maze, the game, the scripts, the jokes, the music, everything else makes an hour plus experience great fun.
I'm looking through the chat. I'm seeing a couple comments. Tori mentions about the magic and Beauty and the Beast is really smart and beautiful. How much were you involved in creating the magical effects?
Jim, at Mark Wilson, there's a guy named Johnny Gaughan. Johnny Gaughan is the master craftsman, I mean Smithsonian level craftsman who built the illusions for Johnny and most of the other people of that era, and still, I mean David Copperfield, Doug Henning, Blackstone, etc.
The magic
Johnny Gaughan
show.
Johnny Gaughan was the builder. Many times Jim Steinmeier was the designer, and then he designs the idea, Johnny actually makes it. So when I got to Beauty and the Beast, Michael said, okay, don't do anything unless you tell me how's Chip Head going to talk and how's the beast going to be transformed. Don't do anything until you tell me those two things. And so we built those illusions and tricked Michael. And then Michael said, okay, to do that, I called upon Jim Steinmeier and Johnny Gaughan.
So you were very very much involved in it. So
They're good friends. Yeah.
how is magic in your life? Well, this is such a I don't know a metaphysical question, but how is magic in your life right now?
Uh, in Many of you might know Eric Krebs.
Yes.
Eric, uh, 6, 7 years ago, I had a show called That's Physics, or That's
Oh, that
Physics
was
Show.
you.
That wasn't me. I watched him do that show, and I sat
Oh,
there and said, "Oh my God, the Chinese will go crazy on this." And so I licensed the idea, but I got permission from David and Eric to do whatever I wanted to do with it. So in China, we have that show and three others touring for the last 5 years, teaching science. But what I found is that I could teach the demonstrations with music, dance, and magic primarily. So the demonstrations would look like magic, and then basically the slogan is it's not magic, it's physics. So I have a lot of fun adding magic to the science shows and then debunking it.
no magic in the corn maze though, huh?
No, 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 no. We don't.
Just the fact that you made it happen is magical
Yeah,
enough.
yeah. I mean, the great fun, the full circle. I thought I was going to die because I thought I was done. Was when after 31 years, a corn maze joke ended up on Broadway in Shucked. I thought I thought it was so full circle. I was dead then.
Well, there
So
you go.
so now my the passion of doing two things, putting two things together that don't seem like they should belong together, but forcing them together. The current project that's so exciting is it's so much fun to see by hyphenates. During pandemic, I started, writing, and that led me to Arlene Hutton, who inspired me, and I learned what the short form of writing was that everybody does with their 10 and 15-minute scripts. So, long story, you watch the news, you finally say, what am I supposed to do about it? So, 30 writers have talked to 30 residents in Ukraine about their experience and written 30 short plays. So I'm now going through those 30 plays. 6 of them will be chosen to be in a stage reading at the Ukrainian Institute for World Theater Day on March 27. Then we'll then probably the top 10 or 15 plays will be translated. 5 of them will go to Vinnytsia Regional Theater, which is my partner in this in Ukraine. And then they'll do a version of them in the fall if we still have a Ukraine.
I was going to say, isn't it won't it be a little dangerous for them to go over there or no?
The writers won't be going over, but I'll be going over. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's nerve-wracking. Um,
So intercom.
was that is there somebody have a question? I'm sorry, I'm hearing the room. Um, Owen, have there been any questions?
Oh yeah, there've been a couple of great questions. First question from Tori Doctor. Don, how do you convince people to support you when your idea is so outside of the box that others can't see what you see?
Wow, that's great. Um, just keep on talking about it. I get a lot of people that are like, "Oh, don't talk or don't share the idea because it'll be stolen." I debunk that. You're the most passionate person about it, so talk about it until you hook up. I the corn maze idea I pitched for 2 years in the most absurd conditions, and yeah, you're going to find somebody that has some other interest maybe that's not about you. Basically, the new president of the small college thought I was a big Disney guy and said, "So what else do you want to do after Beauty and the Beast?" And I said, "Build a cornfield maze." And he said, "We got plenty of cornfields. Let me show you around." And then and and then we talked to 3 farmers,
Most of us are trying to get a small play done in an off Broadway theater, and you find a like 10-acre cornfield.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think you got to get skin in the game too. I mean, the Ukrainian play project will probably be about, I don't know, $15,000. Um, I, I, I didn't know how to go out and raise $15,000 in order to make this happen. The writers are writing, the ones that are selected will be paid $500. Um, the, the residents in Ukraine are being paid. I'm hoping that Igor Golak will direct it, so I bring him down from Boston. Um, Venue costs, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, but he, but the nice thing about that is Mitzi Perdue. I didn't know the widow of the great Perdue Chicken Estate. She heard about the project, and I opened up a letter from her, and she sent me $1,000 and said, "Tell me more." Um, so. I think part of it is taking the leap, like I hear so many people doing here in your intros.
Next, Owen.
Sure. Next question from Candy
Yeah.
Carl. Don, do you find that Universal Studios Orlando is better at the theater aspect than Disney World, or are they now on par? She just saw Drawn to Life, Cirque du Soleil at Universal.
That's a very
Yeah,
interesting question. I like that question.
yeah. I love both of them. When I worked at Universal Studios, there were 5 shows, and all 5 shows were about how to kill people. Miami Vice, Conan the Barbarian, the Wild West Stunt Show, the Star Trek with lasers. When I went to Disney, it was all, hugs and cuddles. So Universal Studios always had the the internal desire to be a little bit more bold and a little bit more fun, a little bit more exciting.
Interesting. 5 shows about killing people. All right. Owen, next up.
That's what the programming was.
Here's another question from Tori Doctor. How do you go about exploring magic in new works? Do you go straight to big illusionists, or do you try to design yourself and then bring those designs to the illusionists?
I work with Gabe Barry a lot, and Gabe, if you work with him, he was a vaudeville performer and juggler and everything. So usually it has to come out of the story. So we go to the story. I know that we're doing a Chinese musical now about a Mongolian princess that comes to the Han Dynasty, and they have to do a show, and it has to become somewhat dangerous because somebody might die. And so we decided to do knife throwing act, and that she's a knife thrower because the Mongolians would do that. And of course, we know the illusions are in place to be able to do it. So once we figure out how it drives the story and what the need is, and we know that it is possible, then we'll go to the designer.
Oh boy. And any more?
Yep, this one's from Greg Nekrasovas. What could new producers at the amateur level learn from Disney from their commercial producing success?
Wow. Yeah, it is such a different ball of wax. I'm sorry, my instinct right now is nothing, um, because the power and the synergy and the brand and the IP and everything that they have. When we did Beauty, Michael said there was a guy in charge of synergy, and I went into a boardroom, and there were 60 people in the room that were all there to figure out what they could do to help Disney Theatrical promote Disney, Beauty and the Beast. So let me think on that, and we might circle back to it at some other point in the conversation. Okay. When I'll tell you this, when I was going over budget in Lion King, by that time we had been fully taken over by the studio. And somebody just said, well, for Disney to do anything, it costs 25% more just because we're Disney. I mean, just because we have to go through the legal, accounting, say just everything that they have to go through, it's just going to be 25% more just because it's Disney. So the small producer, that you don't want to be there.
Did you interact much with Bruce Lazarus? Did you know Bruce?
Bruce, sure, sure.
Yeah. He used to be on my board.
Well, Bruce was, yeah, yeah. I think he was the second theatrical attorney that they brought in after, yeah,
I
once we
know he
opened
was
it.
he was Lion King, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Next up.
I think that's all the questions we have for now. We did have a comment from Marilyn Anderson praising the Ukraine project and everything you've done is so impressive.
Well, thank you, thank you. It's the probably the most touching and important thing I've done.
So, so we're still like the jury is out on whether there's anything a young producer can learn from Disney. Uh, all right. Um, there are other things about producing that I'd like to actually talk about. Um, we teach people producing. That's one of the things that we do. That's what Jane's thing is. She teaches people how to be a more effective producer. Um, what do you think are the basic talents that are needed to be a producer? And does one of them have to be raising money?
I'll go back to the old adage of the calendar, the checkbook, and the database, right? I mean, that's all you need to general manage that, and the producing is tied to it. The producer needs the idea. Um, but yeah, you need the database of people, which networks like this do. You need um, the calendar to put you on a track that is going to continue to drive you every day, and you need some money to get started, or trade, or friends that feel the dream. Um,
Well, let's clarify something. I know that you led the process on Disenchanted, and it sounds like you led the process on the maze. That was your idea, and you actually that blossomed from your idea. What is the difference for you between projects that you initiate and projects that you help um, bring to fruition?
sure. Um, uh, Republic of Mongolia wants to bring no, it's too much. Um,
Republic of Mongolia. Okay.
um,
He's going to tell us in private.
no, no. I think part of um, I don't know if we should relate this to individual stories. Um, as when you're general managing is when somebody brings you an idea and they want to go forward. I somebody will correct me, but I remember with Wicked, general managers started getting. I think that was where the executive producer, byline started. When the general manager knows more than the team coming in, they end up guiding the producer, and hence the executive producer title for many general managers now. Um, in Tale of Two City, it was a team that had been on Broadway as performers, but never produced before. They had been,
It's Jill, right? Jill?
Jill Santori was the author, and the the producers, the Sharp family, the couple had never produced before. He had been in Phantom. They had been through two other general management offices that uh, left them, or they left and they came to Town Square. And then I worked with them for 5 years to get them to Broadway. In the process, it was really the strategic path of how to get to Broadway. They were they had developed this sense that we're the rebels. We're the ones that are going to do it when Broadway will shut out the beginner. We're going to fight them. We're going to show them. It was an antagonistic spirit that was in their messaging, in everything. Begin the revolt. Tale of Two Cities. Um, and it seemed to be a wrong message to send out to a community that eventually you wanted to embrace you. Um, so choosing the early development steps, reading, concert, co-production, all those things, they can pile up into a development cost that overwhelms your production budget. Even Disenchanted at $1 million had $200,000 of development costs, which in retrospect was just too darn much to carry in. So after they did a big concert at what was the Ford Theater then, cost them a fortune, kind of came and went, and so it became a different strategy about how to get as much money for as little. That eventually led to
But
finding the
this is Disenchanted now.
oh, this is Tale of Two Cities.
Back to Tale of Two Cities. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So the eventually that led to you have to do a regional production. That led to a not A class director that they were trying to get because they were not A class producers, and so they were just reaching beyond their scope. Um,
But they had a great casting director. Who's my friend, Barry
they did,
Moss.
they did. It was a singular author before singular authors were popular again. And so there was a lot of
Oh, I don't think singular authors are popular yet. I think there are basically there
it,
are problems. There are problems. I'm a singular author. I mean, I do
okay.
book music and lyrics, so
I mean, yeah, I mean,
I can't defend it though.
Between Lin-Manuel and stuffs, there's enough of them out there now that at that time nobody was, in the position that Joe wanted to be. Um, so we found Oslo. The director we picked was the artistic director down there, and then compromises made visually because we found out if we just made a couple compromises, we could build the broad the set that we built at the Oslo could be the set on Broadway. And the shop was phenomenal down there and did it. So it's just guiding from a producing end, guiding from a management end there, guiding producers through just finding some choices that could fit their needs and their budget that maybe they're not aware of.
Here's an obvious broad question that I forgot to ask. Which do you enjoy more, producing or general managing?
And directing.
And directing, okay.
I don't do anything that's not fun anymore. Yeah, I'm
So the
I
so so it's not a
enjoy it.
question of which role you're in. It's a question of finding a company that that you want to be with and you enjoy being with.
Yeah, yeah, and an idea. I'm doing one project now that everyone assumes is going to be a once and done, and I'm only doing it because I think it's better than what everybody thinks, and so I try not to do things that'll be once and done. Like the Ukraine project, I think some of these plays will look at them and say, okay, they should be longer, develop longer. I think I'll develop a relationship with the Venezia Theater in Ukraine where eventually we'll share products. I think the Ukrainian Institute will go on to have stage readings as part of their programming. So yes, you're right
So
as well. It's something that lasts.
So the Ukraine project, they're actually going to be doing live performances. I'm so used to thinking in terms of virtual and Zoom. Is it going to be available virtually so that people can watch it who are not in Ukraine and
Yeah,
not in New
it
York?
will be. Yeah, yeah. It'll be available for Ukraine. I'm not sure yet about here. We're going to do it once at the Institute and once at a theater, probably at Eric's Theater on that weekend, and
Theater
then go.
555.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you about that. What are you going to be planning for the filming of it with multiple camera setup? Or
Oh no,
what have you thought about?
no. Right now we're just doing. Right now I'm pouring a glass of wine. Right now, right now we're just doing a stage
When he
reading.
doesn't produce, he drinks wine, everybody. Just so, if
Well,
that wasn't clear.
that's what I thought the game was.
Yeah, okay.
I thought this was just chat with friends.
Yeah,
Um,
that's it.
yeah,
I got my water. I should have actually gotten a glass of wine to join you. That would have been the proper thing for me to do. I'll drink my
the
water though.
the Ukraine project is uncomfortable for me in terms of it being brand new. I really haven't worked in the world of nonprofit theater in New York at all. I ran Ensemble Studio Theater Los Angeles in the 80s. That was my only kind of nonprofit credit. So to reach out to 62 writers applied to choose 30 and say, we're going to create this. I don't have a nonprofit institution. I'm just paying for it. So so I don't know what the next steps are, except um, I started out by saying 80% of the job. I've met people in Ukraine. I fell in love with them. I wanted other people to have that experience. So 80% of my initiative was to have 30 people talk to 30 people and 30 Americans to open up their eyes and 30 residents feel like somebody cared. Um, so most of my job is over. Now I got 30 plays that I actually have to produce a show.
I'm in a
And
parallel situation, but on a smaller scale. Yeah, I
okay,
understand.
yeah, and so that's
Thanks to Ancestry.com, I found out that I'm part Ukrainian. So I'm when people call Zelensky bad names, I get really, really, really upset.
A number of the
Um,
playwrights are in it just for that reason because they have roots there and they don't know about them. Yeah.
if I'd known, I would have written a play and sent it to you. How long are the plays, by the way?
Under 15 minutes.
Just under 15 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Um, so I don't know. Any other questions from the room, Owen? Let me open it up to the room. Guys, raise your hand and you can come in and ask questions and, can spend another 5 or 10 minutes with Don if that's okay. Anybody want to raise a hand and make a comment? How about the people that were talking over me before? I don't even know who it was.
I'll go back with somewhere along the line, and I guess it was at Disney. Disney was the film. We had Disney, and it was the first time on Broadway. Disney comes to Broadway. So somewhere along the way, I always thought about the magic three number. I mean, to do any project, I always was looking for the three-legged stool. I always thought there's got to be three reasons to do something.
Well, Candy, I saw you put your hand up, so you can turn your mic on and just talk to us.
Yes, I have been struck by the fact that those of us who have a background where we've done multitudinous of things, I think in the end game, now that I'm a producer, I think having had all of those experiences, I actually was a dancer and I did elephant stunts for Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus back
You're
when I was
right up
younger.
you just touched his heart.
Yeah.
Wait, at Disney, were you at Circus World?
No, this was the actual tour of Ringling Brothers in the
Okay.
mid 80s. So, no one would say to me today that that would be a beneficial thing for me as a producer now. And I think I'd love to reinforce your ideals that, you know what, do the experience, do the thing that makes you, you know, get jazzed in the morning, and don't think, oh, well, this is not going to serve me in the end as a playwright, as all of those, fill in the blank. I can tell you that I'm a much better producer and I'm a much better director now because I had all of those experiences. When someone said, you're going to work in an outdoor theater, okay, let's do that in Kentucky. Okay, I'm going to work on a cruise ship. Okay, let's do that. And I think every one of those experiences has made me a better person as a work mate, as a leadership person, but also as a creative and intuitive person. And I think you are mirroring that exactly. So I encourage people to think the same way you do.
True.
So
I,
Candy can be your gal in Connecticut if you need one.
I did a year at Circus World in '76.
Of
Oh,
course you
yes.
did. Of course you
Yes.
did.
And my husband's a bubbleologist. So there you go.
okay. Buckles Woodcock had the male elephant herd down there. Yeah. Okay. Go on.
Judith Minus, you're up now.
Hi. I just want to know before I ask a question, it has nothing to do with the producing, but there's a question that I wanted to ask you in a breakout room. And are we going to breakout rooms?
I'm happy to do it if Don is able to stay, sure. But
Yeah.
that'll be after we finish the interview.
Okay.
All right. Well, Tori, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm actually going to handle his question because it's too loud for him in the restaurant that he's in. But we are trying to bring in a video game audience and board game also a bit. We feel like that's really pretty opposite from your normal theater audience. But we also feel like there is a natural fit with the more immersive types of theater that have been coming out recently. What are your thoughts on how to combine these things, how to reach that audience that isn't traditionally a theater audience? I know someone told us in our, Jody said that she could potentially help us a little bit, but we'd love to hear your perspective on that.
I love it. So there's a video game that's very popular. The video game has music. The video game has characters. Have you gone through the IP process? or are you going to?
Well, it's not a specific video game or anything.
Okay,
It's a totally original idea. It is sort of D&D inspired,
okay,
but it is not specific to any one game.
okay. And the path of the current D&D, it was funny. They did it generically until it was successful enough that they could convince
Right.
D&D.
I just
Right.
want to say that Michael Bailey, who is of the generation, I mean, he's the young guy in the room. He says that D&D people love theater. So
And sometimes that there is an overlap. There
Yep.
is like a Venn diagram, but if we want to continue reaching specifically more into the video game areas, we're just trying to figure out like how do we make it cool to them and also keep it theater.
well, the other problem with the crossover of that audience is the cost of theater.
Exactly. Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
people can participate in video games for a lot less money than they can go to a show.
Yes.
That's the thing that we have to figure out. I don't know what the answer is to that, but we have to figure that out at some point.
We would. I just did a play called "The Boy Who Loved Batman," and so I was introduced to Michael Uslan and the whole Comic-Con experience.
Yes.
Michael is executive producer of Batman. Yes, and I would. And you're in San Francisco, or you're in
I'm
Seattle?
in Seattle, yeah, and Tori is in Calgary. We have done the Comic-Con circuit a bit
Yeah.
because we also do the other part of our business is that we do commissioned musical works for gamers and really for anyone, but it started as more for gamers. So we have absolutely connected with some folks there. But now that we're closer to getting this thing produced, we're like, okay, how do we reach our audience?
Well, showcase it during a Comic-Con, and get on their schedule and tell them how it's inspired by something or other. Getting it. Yes, I love it. In China, the big musicals, they just don't have the market for it yet. Shanghai is now filled with small plays that are mostly immersive, and cheap enough to continue to run. And the anime from Japan is, kind of leading the charge in terms of successes because of the IP. So that eventually you're going to, in today's market, I would think you're going to get to that point where, are you going to need somebody else's IP to put you over the top? If you can prove it, is it going to be technology based? I mean, do you have
there are certainly some technological elements to it, specifically because it is a choose your own adventure style. We are already working towards developing an app that will help the audience vote at the appropriate places. And I'm sure there will be more technology involved in terms of projections and whatnot. But who knows? Because I can also imagine a lot of the magic done with practical effects. It just sort of depends on budget and staff and all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Jane Dubin, I don't know what the 20-sided tavern people is. I don't know what that is. I'm old, I guess.
My understanding is that it's sort of like a live play D&D situation. Like they're more or less playing the game as they go through, but it's in a big, huge theatrical version. Ours is different from that in that it's a self-contained story. You're not playing the game as you go. It's inspired by more than it is playing the game.
Right.
I just thought hi, this is Jane.
Hi, Jane.
If you are looking to reach the audience that likes the gamer inspired types of things, they are a show that is currently running in New York and potentially other places. I'm not sure if they've started other places yet, but they are experienced producers who have managed to find the audience of people who likes games. So I think it might serve you well to reach out to the people who have been successful in the arena, because there aren't many of them.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Get the show concept. You have designers on board?
We have we have an artist who does all of our designs so far, and we're in talks with some like developers for the app. But while our script is in really good shape, all the design and everything is pretty early stages.
Great. It's exciting.
And also in the chat, I see that Michael Bailey is offering to give you help. So you
Wonderful.
connect with Michael Bailey
Sounds
and
good.
Jody
I'll DM you,
Moore.
Michael.
For newer writers, we got a question from Jody. For newer writers, do you find it helpful if they are working with an experienced dramaturg? How much do you work? Do you work with? Well, you're working with new writers with the Ukraine project, but have you been working with writers over the
Yeah,
years?
it's kind of funny. We're writing this. We produced a musical, big musical, and it's been running in China for a year and a half. Now they want to rewrite it for an American audience in English to be performed in English, performed in New York. So we brought in a new Ivan Menchel is writing, and I talked about there's a segment where dramaturg now is defined as research, so he has a Chinese research person that keeps him on course in terms of what's right and what's wrong in the Han Dynasty. The dramaturg that is getting my experience more into the structural element and being the polite producer's voice of when something isn't working in the script and should be looked at a little bit more. Um, I think the producer has to decide whether they're going to do that or whether they're going to bring in somebody else to do that. And that's a big choice.
So Jody, I'm not sure whether that's exactly the right question that I would ask. I would just tell you and any new writer that dramaturgs are extremely helpful in structuring a piece and seeing things that you may not see. It's sort of like getting a coach if you're an actor. You can go up on stage and do all the everything on your own, but a director or a coach sort of shapes it in a way that you're not seeing it. And we don't all see our work. We're all, as clearly as an outside eye can see it. So I'm always in favor of actually working with dramaturgs. Finding the right one is another question. It's not an easy relationship, and it has to be made very carefully. So
I, I I'll just voice it. We're on a speed dial. We're on a speed project here, and so I guess what happened there, you'll also get the question of do you hire the writer or do you hire the writer and the director? And what the pros and cons are for that. And the pro for bringing in the director at the same time is when the director acts as the dramaturg.
So yeah, the question is to be very respectful of dramaturgs. They function in a very important way in in the business. Um, I saw another thing here somewhere. Oh, Tracy, do you want to come in and ask your question? Well, she's asking, and I wasn't sure I understood it. Have you ever brought a musical to TV? Have you ever produced for TV?
Hello.
No, yeah.
Oh, there you go,
Okay.
Tracy.
Hi. Hi, Don. I have a musical called TV the Musical, talking about two things that don't necessarily belong to each other. It's definitely hard to communicate why this musical is very powerful to theater people because everybody in the theater wants to kill their TV. So I love both media or mediums, e-media, and I really am excited about it. I was just kind of curious if you had so much experience in so many other ways, and yet TV is such a golden period of showrunners and directors and producers, and I feel like you've not done that.
No, I have.
We've found something you haven't done, Dan. This is amazing.
I taught Cheryl Ladd magic, and I taught the Manimal magic, and I taught I taught Cher magic. So I've only done magic in television on on the shows in the 70s and variety shows,
Wow.
but never a theatrical.
I was at that 1984 thing in New Orleans, by the way.
Oh,
That's how
great.
that's how old I am.
It was so much fun.
Definitely.
Well,
Thanks so much. It was good. Thank you.
unless there's more questions, I'm gonna wrap up now so that we can actually meet you in a breakout room. But I want to thank you, Don, so much for being. You have no idea. 252 consecutive weeks of this, finding somebody who has like something new to say. It's like crazy hard. So I appreciate having you here, and you are definitely a perspective that we don't get that often from a lot of the producers that we know, because you really look at producing as not just theater. You look at producing as basically creating events and just making something out of nothing. That's what producers do. It's like they start with an idea and they build it into something that can be impressive, can be big, can be small, but it's something that wouldn't have happened without your idea. So thank you for sharing so many aspects of producing that a lot of us, I guess, don't really think about. I appreciate it very much. I'm going to say a few words to my YouTube audience as well. So I want to thank everybody out there in YouTube land, and also our podcast, which we are hoping to get back up and running again. If you find us and you don't know who we are, we're Theater Resources Unlimited. We're all about helping people understand the business and navigating the business of theater. We do this every Friday. Trust me, every Friday of my life. I've done this since 2020. So if you want to be in the room and if you want to meet the people and ask your own questions, that's absolutely easy to make happen. All you have to do is email me. My email is trunltd@aol.com. That's trunltd@aol.com. We'll put you on the list. We'll invite you to the Zoom meetings every week. Next week, we're going to have a conversation with the Minneapolis Playwrights Center. It's actually the Playwrights Center that is located in Minneapolis, but it serves over 2,500 writers around the world. So there'll be a lot to talk about, and hopefully it'll be of interest to you. The following week, we're going to have Jane Dubin and Dave Elliott are going to talk about our producer development and mentorship program. So it's a free intro to the program. I hope people will come and support that and see and maybe become interested in taking the program. I think I even have March 14th booked, but I don't have my notes in front of me. So just trust me when I say I'm going to have somebody in this room every Friday forever. So come join us and come be part of it. We do this as a community service still. I mean, we're no longer in shutdown, and we no longer need to have a room for people to go to so that they don't go crazy in isolation. But we still want you to be part of this, and if you can't afford to pay anything, then come for free. It's fine. If you want to support us, don't let me stop you. Basically, you can go to trudonate.com, trudonate.com, and whatever you give us will be very welcome, and we'll be very grateful to have to help us continue doing this forever and ever and ever, or until I just pass out from exhaustion. So that's it, everyone. And again, thank you to everybody who in the community who attends. Great turnout today. We had 40 of you who showed up today, so that's very heartening for me. And hopefully I'll see you next week and in the weeks to come.